At the air terminal, U.S. Marine Mike expresses farewell to his sweetheart, Jenny, prior to traveling to North Africa for an extraordinary mission. After 90 days, Mike and his spotter Tommy are still in the African desert, looking out for top of a bluff for their death target. Ultimately, they see two gatherings drawing closer from inverse bearings. One gathering is coming by walking while the other is an escort loaded with equipped vehicles. The bunches compromise and Tommy, in addition to his superior in the radio, urge Mike to make the effort, but he falters. It looks like a sweet get-together between, dislike a fear-based oppressor making business. Then Mike understands this is a wedding and his objective is the lucky man's father, who is currently remaining behind the couple. He educates his superior regarding what is going on and gets requests to kill the lucky man to arrive at their objective simultaneously, but Mike declines to mercilessly kill a non-military personnel and deceives his boss. He's lost the Desai target. At that point, a glare off the sharpshooter scope radiates their area to the watchman at the function, who promptly open fire. Mike shoots a couple of projectiles back prior to taking off with Tommy while the watchmen race to clear their supervisor from the area. A portion of the watchmen begin making the way toward Mike and Tommy in their vehicles, so the pair must choose the option to bounce and move down the slope. They race to stow away behind a rough development and Tommy calls his chief to request salvage, but his GPS has broken and he can't offer their precise position. The foe is drawing nearer, so Mike takes shots at the slope to make them change course. Unexpectedly, their adversaries leave since they see there's a dust storm coming. Mike and Tommy choose to involve it as cover and stroll through it as Tommy makes another call. His chief advises them to arrive at a town found 5 hours toward the west so they can be gotten. At last, the team figures out how to escape the tempest and starts strolling under the unendurable desert sun. Tommy talks constantly and shares anecdotes about his child and spouse at home. However, Mike actually doesn't say a lot. Baffled, Tommy brings up that something is clearly eating Mike within. Also gets some information about Jenny, pondering the chance of marriage. Mike makes sense of he needs to wed her, yet he can't yet in light of the fact that it's muddled. Minutes after the fact, they receive a message on the radio making sense of that the fundamental group has had difficulties and the new get spot has been picked, meaning the team should cross the desert to arrive. Due to the ridges, the radio will not necessarily in all cases work, so they'll must be extra cautious. After bunches of strolling, Mike and Tommy experience the dust storm once more and stop to endure it. They can see a person with a kid toward the finish of a rope strolling through the tempest. However, they don't appear to see them back, so the pair doesn't shoot. As the wind blows, an admonition sign falls off its post. When the dust storm is gone, Tommy and Mike keep on strolling under the burning sun. Unexpectedly, the admonition sign grounds directly before Mike's feet. He can't understand it. However, the skull clearly implies risk, and that's what he recollects. The USA has covered lots of landmines around here. Anyway, Tommy thinks Mike is going over the top with it, and makes sense of it's a stunt from the local people to get foes far from their towns. Tommy additionally calls attention to that turning around implies passing on from thirst, so he simply continues onward, certain that the sign means the town is close. Following a couple of long periods of strolling, Mike freezes when he ventures onto something, yet at the same, it's simply a little toy trooper. He takes care of it in his vest prior to seeing that Tommy is out of water, so he shares his own. Frantic to keep the mind set up, Tommy starts strolling in reverse as he continues prodding Mike for overthinking things. Unexpectedly, a tick can be heard and Mike attempts to caution his companion, yet it's past the point of no return. Tommy makes another stride and a landmine detonates. As his ears ring, Mike makes a stride towards Tommy, just to hear another snap. He freezes in shock as he understands he's remaining on top of a landmine and can't move without enacting it. Once the sand from the blast gets out, Mike can see Tommy has endured, however, lost the two his legs. He can't quit shouting in torment and asking for help, so Mike hollers back to quiet him down and make sense of the circumstance. Under Mike's direction, Tommy takes a stab at going after his pack with the radio. Be that as it may, the aggravation is excessively. His temperament deteriorates when he peers down and finds he's feeling the loss of his legs, making him go nuts. Mike quiets him somewhere around, helping him to remember his family, and notices the medication infusions they convey in their vest. Tommy promptly takes both as opposed to saving one for later like Mike says. Then Tommy goes after for the pack once more, and this time he arrives at it, Yet at the same sadly, the radio isn't working. Getting frantic, Mike considers moving back from the landmine on the grounds that there's an opportunity it's old and broken. Anyway, the gamble is high and Tommy believes him should live. So he takes out his weapon and requests that Mike send his adoration to his child, previously self-erasing. Mike shouts in disappointment and sadness, however rapidly stops himself as he understands going ballistic may make him fall. Then, at that point, he begins bringing down his body very cautiously until he's down on one knee and utilizations his blade to move the sand tenderly. He discovers some round metal under his foot, affirming he's on top of a landmine. Unbeknownst to Mike, a man is watching from far off, however leaves without making a difference. Then, Mike assembles his shoestrings, the lash from his firearm, and his hatchet to make a snare. He tosses it multiple times to attempt to get the sack, yet it won't arrive at sufficiently far. Moving cautiously once more, Mike stands up and nearly falls while tossing the hatchet. However, fortunately, he recuperates just in time. Presently, he at long last can drag the pack toward him and get the radio, just to find the battery is drained and the extra is in Tommy's vest. Essentially, the radio can be sun-controlled, so he passes on the little board on the ground to allow it to charge. A short time later, Mike keeps himself occupied by going over his provisions. A couple of hours after the fact, the radio at last charges, and Mike will converse with his superior, making sense of the circumstance and mentioning extraction. Anyway, the official is upset about the bombed mission, and since Mike doesn't have GPS and has one leg in death's domain as of now, he isn't viewed as high need. The helicopters can't fly in light of the dust storms, so Mike should pause 52 hours for a caravan to get him. Mike doesn't know he can endure that long, yet he has no other decision and starts a clock on his watch. The superior helps him parcels to remember mines are old and broken and that there's a channel method to endure this issue. Anyway, the correspondence cuts off before he can get done with making sense of. A couple of hours after the fact, Mike eats a portion of his proportions, seeing he doesn't have a lot of left. Unexpectedly, the dust storm begins drawing closer once more, so Mike rapidly covers his face, snatches his things, and twists around to stand by as still as conceivable, contrary to the natural flow. His body shakes a great deal, however Mike is solid and overcomes it without initiating the mine. Once the storm has passed, Mike glances around and finds the breeze push Tommy's body right close to him. In the wake of covering his companion's face with his cap, he opens the vest pocket and tracks down an image of Tommy's loved ones. He requires a moment of quietness and returns it before at last snatching the battery. Tragically, the breeze has blown the sack excessively far, and presently he doesn't approach the radio. The discouraging incongruity makes Mike giggle. Over the long haul, Mike can do nothing yet pause. He covers his head to safeguard it from the sun and beverages the last drop of water. Getting frantic, he shoots a couple of projectiles at the sky and shouts for help without much of any result. He starts considering self-erasing as his as it were choice. Yet at that point he sees a Berber man cruise by. Mike focuses his firearm at him and requests that he stop. However, the Berber doesn't tune and also continues to move. Figuring he may not communicate in English, Mike makes detonating commotions to demonstrate this is a landmine region, but the Berber simply ridicules him. Then the person begins strolling toward Mike in a crisscross example. Unexpectedly, he inquires as to why Mike is stuck. Uncovering, he figures out English. Mike clarifies what is happening as he go on for request water and the radio, but the Berber taunts him for not moving. He takes his carafe yet doesn't assist with the radio. He simply leaves while disregarding Mike's shouting and addressing if his bizarre developments assist him with keeping away from mines. Hours after the fact, Mike compels himself to pee in a pack to drink. He scarcely takes a taste before a young lady shows up, running toward him in a similar crisscross example. She gives him his carafe brimming with water, and Mike drinks as he supposes she's the Berber man's little girl. Then the young lady takes out a toy trooper from her sack, and Mike shows her the one he tracked down consequently, so she utilizes both to address him and Tommy. Without utilizing words, she pushes the toy to tell Mike he really wants to continue on. Mike says he can't move and starts hollering for the radio without importance to, so the young lady simply leaves. Later, as the sun begins to go down, Mike plays a few melodies on his telephone, furthermore, lights a fire. He can hear creatures yelling somewhere far off, So he occupies himself by taking a gander at pictures of Ginny on his telephone and watching a video she uncommonly made for his takeoff as a rabbit's foot. In the long run, the fire goes off and Mike nods off while looking at his watch. His dad shows up before him and punches him, setting off a memory of the maltreatment he endured as a kid. This causes him to awaken just before he falls. Then Mike attempts to relight his fire, yet at that point he hears the snarling of wild canines drawing nearer. He begins shooting in obscurity, however none of his projectiles hit. Choosing to gamble with utilizing the spotlight, he finds one of the wild canines is removing Tommy's sack, and there's one more strolling toward him. In the wake of changing weapons, he starts shooting once more, harming the canine. As the animal strides back, it enacts a landmine, and the subsequent blast frightens the pack off. The following day, the Berber visits Mike once more, calling him a fortunate man for enduring up to this point. The Berber makes sense of he doesn't have any idea where the landmines are, and he simply strolls like that to get better possibilities. He thinks Mike fears continuing on truly in light of the fact that he can't do it in his spirit and inquires as to why Mike turned into a trooper, to which Mike answers that he had no really great explanations to remain any longer. Basically, this time the Berber brings over the radio, and Mike rapidly changes the battery. However, it actually won't work. Then the Berber snatches Mike's face and advises him to be a liberated person. This makes Mike daydream the man as Tommy advising him to live. Yet when he squints, the Berber is far away. A couple of hours after the fact, Mike cuts his boot since his foot is red and enlarged. He likewise utilizes his blade to kill a scorpion. In the end, the intensity turns out to be excessively, and he removes his vest. Obviously, the entire experience is influencing him intellectually. He begins seeing mental trips and interfaces with them as though they were genuine by hollering at them, punching them. What's more, in any event, yelling in dissatisfaction. Each time this happens, a clicking sound can be heard. He even sees Tommy's body standing up and declaring they're returning home. However, he rapidly vanishes. At night, Mike keeps on attempting to contact the base, while Tommy's pipe dream lets him know that he's simply killing the battery. At that point, his telephone begins ringing, and Mike sees it's a call from his father. So Tommy needs to call attention to it isn't genuine. Mike snaps and drives him away. So Tommy reminds him this is going on the grounds that Mike never dealt with his internal devils. Mike says that having left Ginny makes him as awful as his dad, yet Tommy consoles him he isn't. A flashback uncovers that Mike requested that Ginny wed him, yet she turned him down since she likewise thought he had a self-mending to do first. In the present, Mike nearly nods off. Yet at that point, the wild canines show up once more. They initiate a mine and create some distance from the blast. However, this time they don't leave. Mike shoots in obscurity in front of him, just for Tommy to caution him to look out. Unexpectedly, a canine approaches him from the side and chomps his arm, so Mike shoots it. Then, at that point, Tommy persuades him to attempt the method his directing official referenced. In this way, Mike frantically begins to dive in the sand. Tragically, the canines bounce on him to assault and drive Mike away. Previously, he can complete the channel, making the mine detonate and hurt him. As he falls dead, Mike flickers and understands the blast was a visualization. However, the canines are genuinely going after. Not set in stone to get by, he snatches his blade and starts killing them individually, getting a few nibble wounds simultaneously. During the battle, he continues to ponder the times he was punched before. By morning time, every one of the canines are dead and Mike is made do. At that point, the radio at last actuates and Mike discovers that the guard is deferred in light of an assault, so he'll be gotten in 17 hours. Knowing the possibilities of endurance are low, the base interfaces Mike to Ginny, and he right away starts saying sorry for obliterating all that he contacts while seeing her before him. The correspondence closes before Ginny can answer. Furthermore, Mike at last drops. However, he's gotten by the Berber in the nick of time. While the man puts a salve on Mike's injuries, he makes sense of a landmine took his leg, showing his wooden one. He had been extremely frightened in the clinic, yet a medical caretaker showed him enough compassion to help him continue onward, and ultimately she turned into his significant other. Then, at that point, the Berber makes Mike drink some medication, cautioning him it'll assist with the aggravation yet will likewise exacerbate the mind flights. Mike specifies the young lady. However, the Berber uncovers he was the person who presented to him the flagon. He possibly has 3 children now since his girl passed on when the mine took his leg. They used to assemble mines to offer them to guerrillas, and the young lady was truly adept at recovering the mines by supplanting them with old jars. The Berber thinks he isn't quite so fortunate as Mike, yet essentially he's free on the grounds that he figured out how to continue on. A short time later the man leaves, and Mike sees his little girl strolling close by. Unexpectedly, the medication kicks in and Mike watches the walls of his life as a youngster home emerge from the beginning. He opens the entryway, and his kid self seems watching his dad being incredibly rough to his mother. At the point when his father saw him, he said he'd train him to take care of business and punched him as well. The hit makes Mike return to reality briefly just for the flashbacks to rapidly begin once more. He sees his blissful life along with Jenny. However, a clicking sound hinders with a memory of his mom in a medical clinic bed. Mike had gotten away from his home in dread and left his mom with his dad, which came about with her in the emergency clinic. Another memory shows Tommy and Mike at a bar seeing how 2 men are hassling a server, who ended up being Jenny. Incensed, Mike came to her protection and start thrashing the folks with heaps of repressed animosity. The mind flights blend once more, and his father returns to punch him. Mike's mind changes between the desert and the memory of his mother biting the dust in the medical clinic, which causes him to feel remorseful right up to the present day. The Tommy vision at long last makes him wake up to caution him the caravan is coming. A voice in the radio is likewise attempting to reach him, yet Mike's dry throat can scarcely talk. He has a go at waving a hand, however he's excessively far to be seen. Then Tommy helps him to remember the smoke projectile, and when Mike is going to get it, he's unexpectedly shot by a foe concealing in the rises. Considering Jenny's consolation not to surrender, a draining Mike twists around lastly snatches the smoke projectile. However, before he can initiate it, the adversary shots once more and makes him drop it. Recollections of contentions with Jenny and his flight fill his psyche as Mike discharges back, shooting however many foes as he can prior to running out of shots. Once more, his dad shows up furthermore. Mike recollects his mom advising him to let her go. Confounded and overpowered, Mike focuses his weapon at his dad, who supports him to make it happen. Anyway, he considers Jenny and how he asked her out after the battle at the bar. So he chooses to be really great for herself and not shoot. His dad embraces him simultaneously. He recollects an embrace from Jenny, assisting him with at long last continuing on. The guard won't remain significantly longer also. The explosive isn't adequately close. Mike recalls the Berber's words and cautiously moves back from the mine. However, nothing occurs. Stunned, he recovers the mine just to find it was one of the young lady's jars from the beginning. Inside the can he finds a toy trooper. Mike chuckles and lastly gets the explosive, enacting it with perfect timing for the caravan to track down him and salvage him. In a little while, a mended Mike returns to the USA and reunites with Jenny, prepared to begin a superior life for her.